Hey Arjun,
Hi Arjun.
Hey Karan here. Hey Taran.
did we wake you up too early on a Sunday? Just like
No,
me.
my daughter ensures I'm up at 6.
What's up? Hope all well.
So you sleep at 3 or you sleep at 11? You get up at
You
6.
know me, man. You know me well by now. Many years. For a change, the weather is nice. I've woken up at 9:30.
And we generally plan a lot of our cohort sessions at 10 a.m. on the weekends. So Tarun has no choice but to start early.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you so much, Arjun. I think, very excited to learn, from your experience of, building and growing some of India's best marketplaces. Right. Guys, for, like a quick introduction, and then maybe Arjun can kind of go deeper. Arjun used to head growth and revenue at Mintra. Then, he was the one of the founders at MFine, which was an online consultation and for doctors and customers. I think he was there for 6 years, became one of the leading companies in that space. Recently, Arjun was at Cult as well, and again heading growth, multiple projects, and now again I think he's just embarking on his new journey. Right. So, Arjun, we have 9 very exciting brands part of the cohort. We have your one ex reportee as well.
In fact, I just dropped in to say that, guys, Arjun was my boss at Mintra. And although I just spent 10 months there, I think that was like the defining moment of my career. Learned a lot from Arjun, like his energy is next level, how he hops in and out from one project to the other, and how he used to manage his leadership style. Everything is fantastic. So this is going to be a great session. Thank you, Arjun, and I'm super excited to learn from you once more. That's why I've joined today.
Nice meeting you, Tanya. How are you?
I'm
Tanya,
good. I'm good.
Tanya, you making me feel worse. My biggest life regrets is not being able to place Arjun. FYI.
No, 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 no. I think Arjun is super. I mean, I can vouch for it. I've been following him for the last 8, 9 years now, and I get so inspired every time I see his journey.
Great. So Arjun, over to you. So we have 9 companies as part of the cohort. Majorly consumer brands in fashion, food, health, oral care. Right. So we'd love to learn from you on how we can grow on Mintra, Geo, how we can grow on quick commerce platforms, and what are some things that founders can do, in the 0 to 1 journey.
Perfect. Uh, so I'll try and keep the discussion a bit broader. I'll try and keep it more conversational. Obviously, I'll try and talk about how to grow on marketplaces, but I'll also try and talk about how to build your own D2C platforms whenever a brand is trying to do that. I think so. That's a journey which I have done fairly a lot, both at Mintra, because we grew a lot of D2C brands during that time, and then also at CureFit, because I was leading Cult Sport, which was their own fitness product destination. So we'll try and cover that, and happy to take questions on the flow. Karan had already shared the broad profile list of the organization, so I think so. Basis that I assume that I'm going to cover some of the things. So let me start with first, right? I think so. In the 0 to 1 journey, uh, one of the most important aspects which I have picked up, and I'll talk it first more from a D2C platform. There are each of the brands are looking to obviously build on marketplaces, but I think so. There are certain brands when you are trying to build a brand and not a label, right? That's a very clear identification for every person to get it right in the beginning, whether they want to be a label or they want to be a brand. Labels do extremely well on marketplaces, simply because a lot of the marketplaces do control a lot on discounting. You want to be present in pretty much every price buckets, while brand has a little longer story. So if you're trying to build a brand, it becomes at some level important to have your own platform. It does take time to grow it. You don't need to invest it on from day one, but specifically for brands where repeats are going to play a role, I think so. It makes a lot of sense to build your own D2C platform, irrespective. Many times there is this question that it's easier to launch in marketplaces, and what about our own platforms? I think so. irrespective of anything, at any point, building your own D2C platform, however you do it, whether on your website, Instagram, however you are enabling it. But I think that becomes very, very critical. One of the key things I've realized, and I always keep on telling brands to keep on looking at it, is what does the customer do during the first transaction, and what does he do, what it takes to get him to do transact another time. A lot of times when we look at long term value of a customer, uh, one of the first thing what happens is we start looking at a 12-month journey, right? Everyone is focusing on a 12-month journey. Everyone is trying to focus ki yaar, next 12 mahine mein we'll get couple of transactions here and there. What many times we forget is the whole retention game of a customer usually ends in the first 20-25 days. When you as a brand end up getting a customer, your opportunity of really interacting and ensuring this becomes a lifelong customer for you is actually the first 25 days. I'll give you a very small example. In Mintra, back in 2012, 2013, when we started, the early days, we used to have a customer retention number of close to about 1.3 transactions in a year, which means if we acquire 100 customers, they end up giving us about 130 transactions in a year. Over the next 18 months, I took that number to close to 4 transactions in a year. Uh, the key defining block was, uh, how do you really get the consumer to transact once again? Very clear. See, most of the products in the D2C world, most of the products we are building are in the impulse category, which means you might always think ये customer एक ही बार खरीद सकता है, but there is always a more opportunity. Obviously, there will be certain products. People who sell mattresses, for example, obviously it's a once in a lifetime purchase or a purchase for a decade. So those are different categories. But most, when I look at fashion, when I look at clothing, when I look at fitness products, when I look at anything to do with FMCG, all of these are actually products which can be consumed at a fair high amount of frequency. The probability of getting the next transaction is the highest in the first 15 days. In Mintra, we used to get roughly in the beginning days about 20% of the transactions in the first month. We moved that number to 50. Well, the moment we moved that to 50, the rest of the cohort took care of each other. So it becomes very important for you. What do you do after he receives the product? If he was not happy with the product, important for you that he returns the product. If he is very happy with the product, it's important. We're already planning the second transaction. We do not need to wait. That, see, the point is when you get the consumer for the one time, you have not won him over. The point is it takes a couple of transactions to win that customer. And by the way, he's at that point in his frame of reference, the brand is active the most, right? Platforms which end up building their own apps, there are certain brands which will have their own apps. Your app is most active during that time. Your email communications, your notifications, your SMS, your WhatsApp, everything is read by the customer after the first transaction the most. You'll think कि मैं 1.5 महीने बाद उसे offer भेज दूंगा and वो convert हो जाएगा. Not really, not happening, right? So the journey changes a lot on this 1 to 2, and I think so there's a lot of importance to focus at what is your dropping point. You'll actually realize some of the most active for your customers end up making the repeat transaction very soon. And that's the cohort you have to grow. You don't have to go after and thinking what I'll do after 45 days. Another small example, a lot of people say, we have acquired the customer, we will not invest in till 180 days, we will not invest in digital marketing or remarketing of any format. We'll try and do only our WhatsApp and emails and notifications or whatever. We leverage our own media channels. Actually, the ROI of that after 180 days in typical dormant customer methodology is very bad. If you move that same logic to about 28 days, yes, you have to be smarter. What is your breakage point? For some brand, it will be 28 days. For some, it will be 30, 35. But it is in that zone. Because the point is, after a certain period of time, after 180 days, it's as good as reacquiring the customer. Which means if you spend about 800 rupees, 400 rupees, or 300, whatever is your CAC, you will reinvest the same amount. While if you ended up doing at the 28 day, you might be investing close to 1/3, 1/5, 1/6, much more, much lesser. So that is one key thing, at least I have seen, and I've seen, and to be honest, I'll give you, being part of organizations across, I've seen some of the largest companies not doing a good job at this. everyone gets muddled into the larger level of accumulated aggregated numbers, and what really ends up happening is you don't really look at it. So very important for you to just understand what happens in the first transaction. Very important for you, what do you do after the first transaction? How do you get him to transact again? We always think उसको ज़्यादा communication भेजेंगे तो वो disappoint हो जाएगा, he'll go away, he'll get. But to be honest, you have to manage that fine balance, because the point is, you might say, okay, we will. Lot of brands say we'll not over communicate, we'll only communicate once in a week. But the point is, after 28 days, even if you communicate once in a week, it doesn't matter. He's not reading you. He's already gone away. So you have to even play that role of the level of engagement with the consumer has to be very is to be very different. Once he's into the system, you can play the game very differently. But in the what you do in the subsequent transaction, that becomes very critical for each brand to really look at how the journey from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, that becomes the most critical thing. I'll give you a very small insight. We picked up that when a consumer returns a product, uh, his probability of doing 5 transactions is 9x more. So what did we do about it? We actually went ahead and started telling consumers, we used to really ask about how did they like the product. If they didn't like the product, we actually wanted them to exchange. Because the whole point is, if we don't do that, he's already gone away. So these are small things you'll figure out what happens in the first transaction. I think so. Trying and focusing as much time on the first transaction gives you a lot of leverage in terms of that. Second thing is, I think so. Wow moments, right? Each transaction has a wow moment. Uh, yeah, he correct.
Yeah, I think this is gold, like for a lot of D2C brands, right? So, can you also share, right? So, like from a D2C brand perspective, like what are some things apart from discounting, maybe, or like does discounting work, like which brands can do, to encourage the second transaction within the first 3 weeks?
So I think so. More than discounting, it's really about expanding your portfolio, right? If there is a clothing brand, you will have multiple categories. You will have other shades. Remember a thing, right? I've always realized back in 2012, people used to have 3 or 4 jeans for an year. Women used to have 5 dupattas. What we realize is there is no end. A woman can buy 24 dupattas. A guy can buy 10 jeans. So the point is, you can actually end up selling the same product again. The second point is, if the product is relevant for a family member, that again brings a huge element, right? So for you, for example, I'll give you in we figured this out in CureFit. So we were selling fitness products. So whenever we sold a cycle, we knew the opportunity of potentially this consumer is relevant. He will end up buying a cycling shoe. He will end up buying slacks. He will end up buying tights for women. All of those are relevant category, right? So whatever is your category width, you have to expose it. It's not only about discount, but it's just about category expansion, right? There's about just limited. Now we will say that as young brands, how will we invest in data science? And we'll kind of say, let's stay away from it. You don't need to really invest. You basically need to see that if a consumer buys X, what are the other categories he buys? We can always play around with just manual level, or even to the fact, as founders, you know which are the most relevant products. So you can start pushing that rather than, let's say, personalizing it to one. If you can't, let's assume you do not have the tech systems yet to do it 1 to 1, you can at least personalize it for 15 to 1. When I say in that ratio, don't, if you can't do one-on-one, at least do it for a cohort of users and do it, and create 10 cohorts, and each 10 cohorts have their own set of language and what you're pushing them. So it's not only about discount. Yeah, discount can be a lever, but actually it's more about category expansion. It's more about need states. The other thing is the impulse is very high at that point, right? Once a new product goes in, you are liking that. And see, we all know if our product is good or bad. If you have a bad product, that's the end of it, right? You would already know why it's not selling. But if you have a good product, that's the point, that you've done a job of selling your product. They already know. So that's the point, that you don't really need to worry about whether people will like the product. You know they already like the product. You push in with the relevant category or a subsequent user. I think that's very critical, because the moment you get that, it kind of takes care of your repeat business. And this is by the very it compounds a lot, right? Because the amount of money we spend on new users and what repeat users can give. So in a growing business, uh, many times the focus on new users becomes so heavy that you end up losing context on repeat. But what you need to understand is retaining a user gives you way more value at times. Obviously, you have to crack the new user growth as a channel, but I think just be there. Even when you do this at marketplaces, you do not have data points, but there are interesting ways how your product extends into other aspects. So I'll give you a very small example. um, we used to sell treadmills and cycles via Amazon and Flipkart for cult sport. Now they are selling, we do not even have data around it, right? So how did we actually ended up giving them specific our subsequent originally we obviously could give them these home classes from cult, but that started later. First thing we actually said is you are starting your own journey, you needed interaction with a relevant nutritionist or something, so we got the people to come back to the brand in some way. So I think so that part, getting them to review your product becomes very critical. In the beginning days, all these marketplace platforms are about reviews. So not incentivizing, but how do you engage with your user during the product journey when you're delivering the product to get feedback becomes the most critical element. And you all would know this, that on Amazon and Flipkarts and Mintras, it's all about ratings. Other than spending money, it is the most rated products which end up doing well, right? So I think so having that awareness of what all stuff you have to include in your packaging, so that you are able to interact back with the customer, you are able to have a two-way line with the customer, I think so becomes. Otherwise, if you just leave it to the marketplaces, you will eventually end up spending again and again, right? So I think it's very important for brands to build that, eventually build traffic to their own D2C platforms also. Um some of the best brands, right? Very early days, I used to work with this brand called Bakabuki, and they were very particular about building their own D2C platform. Today, in spite of being a 100 crore brand, they, I think, still about 30% of the revenue comes through their own D2C platforms. And that is huge because the level of love and repeats they get out of the D2C platform is just tremendous. Now, just extending this logic, right? When you, a lot of times we kind of also um, make our own platforms the costliest. That is something we should not do, because that results to a massive level of customer dissonance, right? You have to always ensure that they are at par, or your platform is definitely a bit cheaper, or at least same, even if you don't want to go the, what my point is, because it is Amazon, it's not that you can sell it for 40% off there and you still decide to sell it at 20% on your platform. That's as good as telling your consumer, don't come on my platform. So I think a lot of D2C brands end up doing this, I think, but one has to be fairly very careful about it. Now just going a little bit, just one more point I realized is uh, in the early days, the most amount of traffic growth uh, actually comes through PR. So what I figured, and we figured this out at MFine, right? Anything we used to launch, right? Because we were a tech-based health, it was innovative. We many times you actually feel it's not worthy to invest on PR. But the fact that um, that you actually end up uh, tying up or creating newsworthy items gives a lot of leverage to the brand in the early days. One, also PR related, also results in a lot of um, customer trust. It solves for trust at a very different level. When things come in print, in digital news, wherever, whoever covers it, I think so is huge. So I think so for brands to figure out their own ways of having new, relevant PR about them, whether it's a new launch. And I, to be honest, most of the large companies aren't innovating enough, which are newsworthy. So I think so building that connections with the right set of news folks across channels is very critical, so that you actually get those news articles. I think so because we've always seen, we used to see that whenever we used to get a mention in a local newspaper, for the next 3 4 days we used to have like 2x 3x of the baseline, right? At the early days it adds a lot of trust. So I think just building on PR becomes very critical, I think so, for the founders themselves and also as a brand, I think so that becomes a lot. So I think so investing in PR and thinking about PR close to it is critical. Many times we feel that यार PR से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, my product is good enough, but the point is the word has to travel, and the word has to travel through more validated sources other than consumer love themselves. uh, um, just a second, there's a question.
And this is a very contrarian view, right? Like a lot of founders don't invest in PR and think कि PR से क्या ही traffic मिलेगा, क्या ही होगा. But
So
like as you said, build
again, the
trust.
point is there are two kinds of PR, right? When I'm saying in PR, does not mean that you're going and buying ad spaces, having a big news item. What I am saying in terms of PR is to do a note release costs about 10,000 bucks, by the way, in any certain area, right? So, by the way, it costs as low as that. Now, when you do that, or let's assume you get a journalist, it's just that in your team, there has to be somebody who's continuously speaking once in a quarter, once in 4 months. You should find somebody to cover you in some sense. And I'm assuming we all are solving interesting problems, right? There is, if we aren't solving an interesting problem, I think so, then obviously we should, anyways, look deep inside what are we doing, because then obviously there's a different problem altogether. Every way we are solving interesting problems, and those problems, how we are solving, needs to be spoken about. So it's as simple as that. I think so. It is a hit and a miss. So you have to keep on talking to people. I'm not saying go and buying spots. That's not worthy. It is the traditional one. So it takes time, but somebody has to be at it. If you're not at it, you will not know about it. So that's what I meant, Ravi. I don't know if that helps answers the question, but sometimes even small, just introducing. For example, we launched very interesting thought. I'll tell you. While the big newspapers and the big publications are costly, the regional ones are not really talked to about. So if I go and do as a brand, for example, when we launched in Pune, we went and did a roundtable conference. So all the local Maratha newspapers came there and their English version. Now, if your consumer is in that set, actually they are more than happy to cover, right? So there are enough people who are covering vernacular languages, and there are enough people who are covering local languages. So I think so that also helps in the early days, right? We always think that okay, the only way to get PR is your story or to get it on Times of India. Yes, obviously those are nice, right? But the point is we have to also understand what is the kind of distribution a Dainik Bhaskar has, or you have to understand what kind of distribution E-Nadu has in the Telugu belt, or what kind of Vijay Karnataka has in Karnataka. So I think so. Very very important for us to even think regional. And by the way, they love talking because nobody actually comes and talks to them. So it is a way of slightly gaming the system, but we figured this out, and it led to a lot of trust building for us for sure. That is there. Now, uh, the other thing at a point in time is as early brands, I would say whenever you go for a brand investment, try and do stuff which is uh, far more creative rather than doing stuff which is regular in the early days, because no way you will be able to compete with the amount of money a similar product or a product you're competing with, who is, let's assume you're building a new clothing line, the amount of money spent by UCB, or I don't know, Biba, or let's say Forever 21 or anything, can't really compete with them at a brand level. So whatever you end up doing has to be far far more uh, uh, different. I'll give you a very small example. We had a branding marketing budget and we wanted to build a campaign. And you know what we did? RRR, the movie was launching, right? So when the trailer was launching, we cut a deal with RRR that before the trailer launch, the first 3 seconds will be M5. The first 3 seconds of the trailer were M5 in all RRR trailers. Okay. We cracked this for 75 lakh rupees, and that was the amount of money I was about to spend on a brand campaign. You will just not believe the number of views we got. All you can just still date go and look at an RRR trailer on YouTube. Just look at the number of views. The first 3 seconds is still M5. It was shared by Alia Bhatt, it was shared by Ram Charan Teja on their social media platforms. And the beauty, when they shared it, the thumbnail was M5, right? So, and we got all of this for 70 lakh rupees.
Crazy.
Um, so that's what we got, right? So I think so being innovative and trying to do my whole point of view on this was okay, in 70 lakh, how much kind of impression will I get? The typical math. right? So sometimes being outlandish, and for smaller brands at their cost level, trying doing innovative stuff or pushing the barrier on that is always more welcome. Because in the regular format, you will never get the same number of views because you are going to compete. And yes, once you get to a big enough size, and obviously we also end up doing brand campaigns at different times, every brand does. But I think so always have this little bit of flexibility to try something which is absolutely outlandish. Early days in Mintra, we used to gamification fairly big, and those days when Twitter trends were not bought. Uh, I'll just give you a very small example. Uh, and we didn't have money that time, so we got all brands to sponsor gifts for being part of a brand quiz. And what we did is we hid prod certain clues within brand pages, so people had to explore the whole brand to find those clues, and they were big money one. And eventual result was back in 2012, I think so. Yes, 2012. We trended in Twitter for 4 days. At that time, it valued a lot because obviously Twitter trends were not bought, everything was organic. So that level of trying new things, I think so, is always a little bit more right brain approach. Usually helps. I think between the teams, I always keep on pushing to try that approach because that's far more scalable. Obviously, you have to get your math correct and do the basics on it. Just a quick, I'll just take Rini's question. Does work? Absolutely works. So, for example, one of the initial ones when we launched our corporate product on MFine, our Connects, we invariably enabled it for some of the top founders who are of large companies, and they tweeted about it. We gifted them it for their. So I think so. Getting people to give away the founders using their own network is a big thing. I think so. Be as shameless about it. Uh, I know you might sometimes feel it doesn't work, but यार 50 में से 10 लोगों ने भी कर दिया, your job is done, right? And some of the thought leaders and all have massive reach. So I think so you have to be pretty shameless about it, right? Obviously you have to make it valuable enough. The product has to be valuable and it fits in well. But I think so those are things, if they are able to do it, I think so it helps a lot, and we got a lot of leverage to do that. Another thing, just by the way, a PR hack, I'll tell you. Whenever you raise funds, most of the VC partners have a PR agency, and you don't. Try and leverage that. The VCs will never say no to it.
For all my Shark Tank portfolio companies this time around, the VCs actually sponsored their PR in Times of India, Hindustan Times. People have been asking me, इतना पैसा कैसे आ रहा है उन लोगों के पास? मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि VCs are actually doing it. Like they have a PR budget.
Correct. So if you look at your investors, they will have a PR cycle. They will have PR teams. So if nothing, they at least have a PR team who can give you the right connects. As a young brand, I can't invest. So always remember, all top VC firms have their own PR teams. Leverage them. So it's the most easiest way to go about it without building your own teams. Um, I'll quickly go to some more parts on the now on the platform side. If you look at platforms, right? Each platforms, whether you look at Mintra, you look at Amazon, you look at Flipkart, they fundamentally run on an event structure. You look at it, that's how the whole world works. Events mean they'll have a weekend sale, or they'll have a, let's say, the big billion day, which is the biggest thing on Flipkart, or the great Indian festival during Diwali, or Mintra will have its end of reason sale, and Ajio will have its own sale. I think so. When you participate in these events, be very cognizant. One, how the brand is available in the right buckets of visibility. Each brand will always say, यार 80% discount चाहिए उधर मेरे को product चाहिए, and obviously they want to give you that. But if you ask them where is the maximum visibility bought, the maximum visibility comes in the 40 and the 50% buckets. So how do you position your products? Where do you place them? Very important. Another very interesting thing, try and do brand-led events with these brands during the off-sale seasons. Smaller brand, it works out much better. Don't tie in with the large sale. When the large sale happens, obviously everything is selling and you might also sell. But you have to understand is these platforms also need certain hooks to drive customers in. So if you try and say, यार मैं अपना कुछ special sale 3 weeks पहले कर दूंगा before your end of reason sale, it makes sense for you. because they will give you enough visibility to drive it, because usually you will not get. So those are some elements which we used to see certain brands used to do it well. I'll give you a very good example. Being Human is a brand. Obviously, Salman Khan is the face and all and everything. But every year, Being Human's biggest amount of sales volume used to actually happen on Salman Khan's birthday, right? And obviously, they used to sell well on Mintra's big sales, etc. But they used to leverage that because Mintra also needed the traffic. Same thing. They were smaller, newer age brands. What they used to, and these were the things we used to tell them, that in our regular days when we do not have traffic, that is the time if they can create mini events with us, because then the brand kinds of over invests a lot. That's a way of hacking the system in marketplaces. Other than doing everything right, it's also about trying to see when the platform needs you the most, right? So having your events timed, being there in their big events is a must, but trying to do your own special events in their lean traffic period makes a lot of value, because as young brands, we don't need you don't need the same amount of traffic what Puma needs, or you don't need the same amount of traffic what Biba needs, right? We most probably at our stage of growth we need 1/10 or 1/50th of that traffic. But that's the point. At that point, a lot of brand saliency gets built. Second thing is, each platform is always building a new product. You look at the time, Mintra will keep on building this insider programs, and they'll try and build their own inside pages. You can be an influencer in it. Uh, Try and be the first ones in all of this. You have to be connected to your Spock and to the product guy. Same thing happens at Amazon. So whatever their initiatives run, try and be the first one, because again, this each product manager has a battle to win and has a see every you have to understand how is the world working. A product manager there is making a product. His own career success is built on succeeding that. And how many brands will he have in initially to launch and accept the product? So be the ones who participates in that, rather than when it becomes the norm and then everyone is in it. So try and be in as many early cohorts of everything. So that level of understanding with your whoever is your spock there, यार कौन सा नया product बन रहा है, क्या बन रहा है, क्या launch कर रहे हो, can we be a part of it? That level of just understanding just adds a lot of value. uh, we used to do this with a lot of smaller brands, and they used to end up doing very well. So I think so. Doing the regular stuff, obviously, I think so. You guys would know more and much enough of that. But I think these are some of the systems you have to also understand, that each of the platforms are also looking at traffic, or are also looking to drive their own growth journey, or trying to build a view about themselves. Try and tap into those when they need you more than you need them. End of reason sale for Mintra or the big billion day for Flipkart. Yeah, you need them more than obviously they need you, but you need more than them, and obviously you want to be in it. But the point is, when nobody is there, then they're launching these smaller tiny products, because what happens is, to make these smaller tiny products work, these platforms invest disproportionately, and you actually don't realize, but you get a lot of traffic through that. So I think so, being aware has to play a big role. Yeah, correct.
Arjun, from a brand side, how do you look at it? Like so, like you mentioned that from a platform side, platform is looking at great supply, looking at great brands. But from a brand side, how do you kind of maintain those great relationships with the marketplace folks and marketplace teams, and how are you in their fun in their cohorts? How are you top of the mind for them?
Correctly. So usually the way we used to work out is, and what we figured out, the best of the brands used to go make their discussion outside their key account manager. They used to always ask, what are the next? Can you share some broad product roadmap you have? What new product launches are you doing? Most brands don't do these conversations, right? And if you ask them, then you say, can you connect us to that product manager? They'll more than happy connect, right? And when you speak to that product manager, he will get very excited because he has no access to brands,
Mhm.
right? And suddenly he will start without, because I'll put it as simply, because he needs to grow in life and he needs his product to be successful. He will eventually take you and grow with it. So that's the whole point, right? That you trying to be involved and trying to know, यार, on the selling side क्या क्या नया लेके आ रहे हो, क्या visibility के क्या products launch हो रहे हैं. We know that the ad system of Mintra is far inferior to Amazon. That means Mintra is continuously building something new. So is Ajio. What are they building, right? Can we be a part of that program, right? क्या हमारे brand को test कर लो, हम सब कर देंगे, जो चाहिए ले लो. Because those decisions when are done is done by a smaller cohort who will not make always the most लॉजिकल फाइनेंशियल डिसीजन कि इस ब्रांड को इतना विजिबिलिटी देना. They will just want participants. So I think those are slight ways of going about it.
आई थिंक स्विगी, ब्लिंकिट, इंस्टामार्ट के प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर्स को भी बहुत ज्यादा डीएम्स आने वाले हैं हमारे फाउंडर्स से. बट आई थिंक दिस इज एक्चुअली लाइक रियली ग्रेट हैक टू काइंड ऑफ अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट्स हैपनिंग ऑन द प्रोडक्ट रोड मैप फ्रंट.
Yeah. So I've seen that does play out a lot. The other thing is, uh, just a second. Yeah, other thing is, at least on the growth side, key growth elements do not outsource. So, for example, if you are running these marketplaces and you need to run growth on them, which is running ads on them, don't give it out to ad agencies in the big. Just don't do it. You have to do it in house. Because until and unless you yourself know what works for your brand, what are the ROI structures, what are the ROAS structures, where the ad shows up, what is the communication line. See, agencies are not really caring how well the creative does. A lot of people do not invest too much time on creatives. Agencies will standard do their good job, they'll scale up to some level, but I think so none of this is rocket science. It just takes less than a couple of weeks to get it. Digital marketing thing is overall the most overrated aspect, that it takes a lot of effort. You just get in somebody with some basic skills in as part of your team, and you yourself being involved. Don't outsource this out. Any aspect of growth to outsource is the worst thing you can do, because then it basically makes you, one, you will never be able to identify what's really scaling, and secondly, you will never really get the pulse on the business. So that's what I keep on doing. A lot of organizations say that हमारे पास skill नहीं है, we'll onboard this agency, they are just taking 3% or 2%. I would always push to hire that 1% and doing it, because trust me, the agencies are doing one third of what you think they are really spending on. See, getting for branding, when you try to brand, get an agency, that's very different. It's more creative work. You need a copywriter, you need an artist, you need an art director, you need a videographer, a lot of things. Okay, fair point. That's where you get an agency. But for your bread and butter user growth, which is performance marketing on each of these platforms, never outsource. Never outsource. It's very I've seen all companies which end up outsourcing, they don't really think about it. The understanding at the business level becomes extremely poor. So I think so that's one thing very clear. I know most brands, I'm assuming most of the brands I am seeing here obviously are not, must not be doing that. But it's for me like it becomes a gold standard. Never ever do that, because I think so it just, you lose context of the business, and you just don't really get where it will really, where is the growth coming from. So that for me becomes a very important part, that anything on user growth, try and keep it in house and grow it yourself. The second part, I think so, on the marketplace growth, uh, and I don't know how much of you guys realize, I think so very important for you to also understand from your P&L perspective is the whole weight management game. I don't know how much have you guys spent enough time on this. Amazon, Mintra, all of them, the shipping charges varies at various weight buckets. So how elaborate is your packaging, which bucket it fits in, it saves a lot of money. These are small things, but just ensuring, right? We know the price buckets are, the weight costs are very different at 1.1 kg and above and below 1.1. So being at the 900 grams where your package weight stays in that weight range becomes very critical. So for anything you're building, I think so very critical for to be aware of this. You might not even realize कि यार मैं तो अपना पैकेज कर रहा हूँ, शिप कर रहा हूँ, इतना चार्ज आता है, but understanding how they are uh, charging you on each of those elements, I think so becomes extremely super critical. So I think that becomes a big point. The other big thing, what I have seen in the recent times is the fact of YouTube, and I'll just cover on that on the growth also. Is just the growth on YouTube as overall, both on shorts as well as core content, is just being insane. One thing I've seen, a lot of brands don't really build it, because this journey is as similar to SEO. And about 10 years back, you would have heard how important SEO is. You have to build SEO from the beginning. I think so. YouTube is also something you have to build it from day one. You need to have the best people, whatever you are building, right? How your product is made, what are the relevant categories for your product, how your product gets used. I think so. The amount of visibility and amount of awareness and brand building you can crack on YouTube, you'll be amazed how well it works. And somebody like Karan and all obviously can give you more on that, but I've just seen a lot of brands don't really invest on this. Is very suboptimal. Usually, uh, building these channels doesn't take a lot. People aren't expecting the most well created or the most well edited stuff. What they want is very relevant stuff, I think so. So I think YouTube as a channel, understanding it, leveraging it for continuous content creation is very, very critical. I think so that for me becomes a huge building block on the growth side of it. Just looking at how well and effectively you're doing YouTube from pretty much day one, how you're building content around YouTube from day one. Uh, Instagram, etc. Obviously, a lot of everyone does it. They grow it, and I think so. It's fairly known, but I think so. Just from a traffic point of view, YouTube has far more uh, bigger outcomes over the long time because it works on the whole search algorithm logic. So whatever you create stays there forever. While Instagram, it doesn't, right? It doesn't really. So Instagram is more about building your community for today, and then even there, Meta and everything, you'll have to pay beyond a point for everything on organic reach, while YouTube works very differently. It works more on subscribers. It is a more long-term product, and it is something as a brand, if you don't end up doing, when you get 5-10 years, let's assume you're a 500 crore brand, you will always get disrupted by somebody who's done from grounds up. You'll never be able to match it. So if you think that I can overnight build it, never. It's not. It's like SEO. You will never be really be able to uh, crack this on YouTube. That's there. If there was any other question, I was just looking at. Yeah, correct.
Uh, Arjun, like from a growth team perspective, that like obviously, like for us, let's say startup has limited budgets. We're looking at about 1.5, 2 lakh rupees a month, let's say, in terms of our team, right? So, what are 3, 4 key elements in a team we should have? Like, for example, you talked about doing your ads in house, right, on marketplaces. So that becomes one. Then spending a little bit, on your YouTube content. So maybe you need editors and all. So, like from a growth content team perspective, like do you have some ideal benchmarks on, like if it's a 0 to 1 startup, how much, like what kind of a team they should have, and like what are some things they should try to keep in house?
Yeah, I think so. In the beginning days, for me, everything you need to have as many people in the entry level layer who are more doers, and all problem solving needs to be done at the founder or founder minus one level. I think so. Keeping the teams as minimal on the middle management makes a lot of sense. That's the fundamental philosophy I've usually taken, and why it also works out well is because in the early days, your ability to fail is actually fine. You screwing up once a while, but also what it does is with some of these smart people you bring in early, they learn the dynamics and they grow in. So it gives you that opportunity way much more. So that's something which I've continuously seen. Uh, I have generally, as a hiring policy, I've always seen finding people who have not found success in the first time are the best people to hire. So generally, don't look. So I'll give you a bad example. We look at a lot of everyone is looking for analytical resources, and we want to hire the best of the IITians or whatever the top engineering colleges. We call these business analysts. My business analysts, I've always hired folks who have gone and attempted for an IS and they don't clear IS and they come back. So these are guys who spent 3-4 years in the IS world. Their friends have gone ahead. They're trying to recreate their career back. And the kind of determination and level and focus they have is insane. So I have built my teams always, for example, I find I never had the budgets okay to hire a business analyst similar to a Swiggy or a Dunzo at M Fine. But what I ended up doing was we used to get these guys who after a couple of attempts at IS at Mukherjee Nagar or wherever, and they're coming back to the corporate world. See, these guys are as smart as any other of the other, let's say, these top IIT colleges or top NIT colleges. And we used to bring in this. So be more creative in that. So that is something I figured out worked very well for me because I used to get the best talent and at a far cheaper cost. and somebody who was really kicked about growing, because that's what they are looking for, an opportunity in the next couple of years to grow disproportionately. uh, so just the attitude was way more different. Tier 2 college smart folks, way more success. So I think so just filling yourself unnecessarily with costly resources beyond a point doesn't really make sense. So try and keep it as lean and more doers, people who can so have an editor, because the point is, if you don't have an editor, then you can't edit. But what you have to shoot, as a founder, you can take a call, or the guy who's handling your overall marketing can take a call. But now, if you'll have a middle management guy who's also doing that, I would stay away from that in the beginning days. That's preferably, at least what I have done across and still continue to do. So that's been, at least on the hiring side, that's how I look at it. But again, like you said, what are the kind of mix? Try and, I think so, capable, try and cover for capabilities. Don't try to cover for the level of the capability. What
Hmm.
I meant to say is, functional capability, you need an editor, you need an editor. You need somebody who can write, get that person. So try and solve for capabilities, not the expertise level on the capabilities. Because I know the expertise at some level as founders or business heads of your relevant business can kind of solve for that.
Yeah. I think you mentioned Bakabuki, right? So I was with the Bakabuki founders last week, and they said हम अपनी social media team पे जब hire करते हैं, we hire people who are actually creators who have scaled a page from 0 to 15K, 20K, rather than hiring social media managers who would then work with the creators.
So I'll give you a very good example, right? Because of my short stint at An Academy, this is one thing I picked up at An Academy, and they do it fantastically well. And they're good on building on channels on YouTube, and that's a DNA they fundamentally have. Uh, they When they have creators, they only bring in Gen Z folks who have an iPhone, who have at least 10 to 15,000 followers on social media themselves. That's
That's
it.
that's
Because that's it. And because when this person comes in, this person doesn't ask for an editor, because this person knows how to shoot on a mobile, knows how to edit on a mobile, and knows everything to do on a mobile themselves. All you need to do is, and trust me, even I have done this at a couple of startups I have invested in, and I have asked them to do the same thing, and they've done. The criteria of hiring is, do you have an iPhone? Do you have these many followers? That's it. So as a company, how I'm saving money? One, cost of phone I'm saving, and the rest point is, obviously, you just need to give them a mic, some lights, and basic, and that's it. He will not ask for an editor. He'll be able to run your YouTube channel or your Instagram channel themselves, because that's what they do day in day out. So I think so. Rather than going for those traditional ones who will work with an agency who will give you large concept, yes, at some point in your organization you will need those people, but I would err on the side of getting these content creators who are very, very Gen Z, and try and work with them rather than work with more established names.
Hi Arjun, this is Ravi. I'm the co-founder of Habits. We are leading India's oral beauty brand. It's been an year from after we launched. So basically, I want to understand, say, for growth of a brand, AOV contains a very important role, increasing AOV day by day or month on month. So in our sector, in our brand, so my generally मेरा AOV रहता है 3 to 400 rupees. So for increasing that, हमने what we did कि pack of one हमने हमारी website से delist कर दिया, and we went with pack of two and pack of four, like 60-day packing and 120-day packaging. And pack of one बाकी channels पे they are live. So what do you think ये strategy सही है to go forward with to increase our AOV and good good amount to be spent on a website rather than keeping the pack of one also on the website?
No, I think so. See, I think so if you're building your own platform, right, it depends on how you're getting traffic and everything, right? I think so. Pack of one gives you your ability to acquire customers better. I'm
Hmm.
assuming how it works, because generally AOV come hai, so conversion better hoga, right?
Right.
Pack of two, but for repeat customers and all, you. So I think so. The way I would really make is, if I still want to keep pack of one, right, I will make pack. If you still think there's worthy, because you are still investing a lot of traffic for yourself,
Hmm.
so I will keep pack of one at a fairly whatever the MRP of pack of one, whatever is the selling price of pack of one, and pack of two, I'm assuming, is cheaper than pack of one. There must be some base level कि दो एक साथ खरीदा तो थोड़ा तो price गिरता होगा, right? Uh, I'm assuming that's what you must be doing, right?
Right.
So in that case, I would for repeat customers, I will de-incentivize pack of one like anything. That I would ensure that the kind of discounting or whatever works in a certain way, it makes no logical sense for them to buy one. For the first time customer through coupons or something, I would kind of subsidize it to a level if you need to grow it. So you can only bring in people when you are directing from a certain channel, you think conversion is going to be low. So you give coupons and leverage that. But anyone who's come directly, I think so your strategy is absolutely right to keep on increasing the OV. And for repeat customer, anyways, this makes no point to have a pack of one, right?
Pack of one, definitely.
Yeah, so
Because
I
in
think
my category, mouthwashes is something which get replenished after 15-20 days. So they were never, वो आने ही है मेरे पास 20 से 25 दिन बाद. So if they one time एक बार उन्होंने खरीद दिया मेरा mouthwash, so they are definitely going to buy pack of 2 or pack of 4 for sure. So that's why we thought कि ऐसा करते हैं. तो अभी
so for
फिलहाल
example, when you, I'm assuming, do you sell on Amazon, etc. also on
yeah,
Amazon for
definitely,
this?
yeah, sure.
I think so for you again there, I think so leveraging their features like subscribe and all of that also makes a lot of sense, I think.
Okay.
Do you guys
Yeah,
use that?
we actually get a lot of subscription on Amazon, and that too for pack of 4 and pack of 2 majority of times, not pack of 1. So
Okay.
that's why we thought कि pack of 2, pack of 4 ज़्यादा बिक रहा है because it gets over very easily. So why not same reply on our website also?
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely.
Sorted.
So I
Thank
think
you.
it looks fairly the right way to go about it.
But दिमाग में वही चल रहा था कि aren't we blocking the very early customer जो कि try करना चाहता है for the first time, हम उसको pack of 1 नहीं दिखा रहे अपनी वेबसाइट पे. तो बस
हाँ,
दिमाग में है.
yeah, but if you really still want to keep, and if you think there is a certain channel जहाँ से you want to get such customers, you can bring in the pack of one as a product, but keep the price extremely high. So for everyone, they are already not incentivized to really go for one.
बट फिर वो
And
दिमाग में क्यों नहीं रहेगा कि पैक ऑफ 1 का प्राइस ज्यादा है ऑन अ वेबसाइट बट द सेम प्राइस ऑफ पैक ऑफ 1 इज वेरी लो ऑन Amazon और Flipkart.
वो तो कंसिस्टेंट रखना होगा दोनों जगह पैक
वो
ऑफ
तो
का.
considering
अब
it
वो
once.
दैट्स अ सोफीज चॉइस लाइक कि वो कम कैसे रखें फिर.
Hmm. Yeah, because I think so. But your intent is what? To really acquire customers via Amazon, etc. Or
I want to acquire customer from Amazon and make them come to my website then.
so then for you, the real game is in each product, what are you sending back that they come and visit your website?
Okay.
Then don't really sell. Then it absolutely makes sense to not sell pack of one. But then your focus should be जब Amazon जो single packet खरीद रहे हैं Amazon वगैरह पे, उधर आप क्या कर रहे हो जिससे वो आपके वेबसाइट पे आएंगे? Which is exactly what I said, right? How do you figure out the consumer from these platforms to interact again? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's most critical, right? Whatever now, whether it's a feedback, it is some giveaway, it is registering for something. How do you bring him to your platform? It could be as simple. See, Amazon is also very smart enough. They'll not let you do. But if in your packaging you insert a small thing which has a small QR code scan, which people
Mm-hmm.
scan and do something, figure that out. I think so that becomes the most critical lever for you to move consumers, right? Because it's a product which is so FMCG, then most probably people will have a tendency to go to Amazon. And
Right.
which is, till Amazon se kharid raha to acha hai, but if they come to your platform, there is bigger benefits for you and the consumer. So I think so for you to have that data, you have to figure out a hook for them to visit your platform, and that hook has to reside in your packaging
Makes sense.
because there's no other way you can give that hook.
Definitely.
If you
Thank you.
give any of that hook on the description of Amazon, they will not let you
It
do
won't
that.
work. Yeah.
Your only best chance is to have anything on the packaging.
Right. Sorted. Thank you.
Hey Aditya.
Hi Arjun. Arjun, I run a brand called Fit Feast. It's a taste first protein brand. We're trying to marry protein and taste together. And we sell products like peanut butters, chips, shakes, and tasty flavors. So currently, we are very focused. 70% of sales are coming from our own platform, and we're spending a good amount on some. And out of that, I'm able to do some organic sales from marketplaces because I assume the amount that we're spending on D2C is redirecting some customers to Amazon Flipkart as well. We're able to do a few lakhs on Amazon Flipkart without spending anything on ad on marketplaces specifically. So now in the next few months, we want to
Okay.
scale up on marketplaces. I want to understand how do I shift the performance marketing budget from Meta and Google towards AMS and Picard? And do I introduce new budget? Do I just put a section of the current budget towards marketplaces? How to really go about it?
I think I think so you will have to go through a journey, right? You obviously do not want to degrow, right? So you can't do a complete swap of money, right? I would recommend moving a partial amount of it. The first things is, I think so, if you've been selling for a while and you've been selling it organically, I'm assuming your ratings, etc., are sorted. So you have enough
Correct.
reviews on this, because nothing sells on Amazon if you're not a certain above a certain rating. It just won't sell, right? If you're not rated well
Absolutely.
enough, it won't happen, right? So I think so. The first part is organically till the time you're selling. Have you been influencing your reviews and ratings? I think so. Very critical. Build that. Once your base is ready, then you start investing on performance. I would say move about 10% of money, see how it scales, how you're spending, and I'll then slowly, gradually make that movement if you want to, at what level and what are the cost of acquiring a customer on Amazon versus your own D2C, and you will see that, right? Um, but what I would say is, uh, just get the first basics of cataloging, the video catalogings, all of those things which are must needed, right? On Amazon, you have this
Yeah.
brand page which needs to be built. So I think so. Get all
Yeah.
of those first done before you start everything, because the
Yeah.
point is, if you don't have that, you'll always it's a slippery slope. You will
Absolutely.
not get. The other thing is, because you've not been spending and you start the spending, try and ask Amazon, whoever is a category guy at Amazon, saying that कि यार मैं आपके साथ कुछ exclusive करना चाहता हूँ. See, one thing very interesting to do with these channels is, in some point in time, at some if your product starts doing well, you should figure out a way. Do you want to go exclusive to a platform? There is merit in that always. See, as a young brand, for you to say कि मेरे को फ्लिपकार्ट भी बेचेगा, Amazon भी बेचेगा, but अगर कोई exclusive देता है, then they back you also that much.
So
So
when you
you
say
should.
exclusive, do you mean launching some specific just on a specific platform?
Correct.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So it will always make you, obviously, one platform will kind of ding you for it, but it's okay. You're in
Yeah.
a growing stage. I'll just give you a very bad example, well, a very good example. Xiaomi, right? And obviously, we can say how big or small. आज की डेट में Xiaomi दोनों पे बिकता है, फ्लिपकार्ट पे भी बिकता है, Amazon पे भी बिकता है. But the reality is, Xiaomi used to launch certain versions here, became big, then used to do something there,
Yeah.
and that's how they did the whole game, right? The other thing, to make pricing look different, in lot of label kind of products, people actually launch very different SKUs on both, so you don't need to compare pricing. So how pricing works for a user between Amazon and Flipkart, a lot of people also do that. So
Right. This is
obviously
a
it
problem
depends
that
on.
comes in if you lower the price on one platform, the account manager will nudge you that you have to lower the price again.
Correct. So I think so. You can also look at SKUs, but yours is a more straightforward product. So I don't know if you can really do that. But more like, I'll give you an example on uh, cycles. I remember I used to handle cycles as part of Cult. We had our own cycles. So the brand of cycles we used to sell on, the version of cycles we used to sell on Amazon, Flipkart were both different. So you really have to go to a very deep level to, obviously the scale of it hurts because some parts हमें branding, packaging, pasting वो सब में change करना पड़ता है basis volumes, but that gave
Right.
us a lot of leverage. Our sales used to not tank. We could price it differently, participate in Amazon sales, and at that point not really ding prices on Flipkart, and then do something with Flipkart and not ding on Amazon, and keep both of them afloat. But the
Got it.
real
Got it.
game
Makes
I've
sense.
seen is review ratings on marketplace platform. How fast are you respond to all reviews? Build those things, get those basics correct, get your core pages built on first, the video ads and everything. Once that is ready, then only start spending money on performance. Don't spend on money performance on the platform. Still, all of that is not done.
Right. Sanity first.
Yeah, 200%.
Got
And
it.
Arjun,
That's helpful.
what's your view on quick commerce? Now, like because I think like in categories like food, oral care, like even fashion, now they're driving a lot of purchases, right? So, but उन लोगों का supply कम होता है, like they keep limited brands. So, like how can founders start? I mean, like for categories like Fit Feast, Habits, like in लोगों के लिए they can generate a lot of demand on these platforms. how can I think they go about listing on these platforms? Like, how can they approach these platforms?
So I think so. The approach for these platforms, I think so. What I've seen, and say Swiggy, right? I'm right now at Swiggy, and I've seen how it happens at Instamart, right? Is the fact that they are actually challenged on space and width. That's a huge, huge problem, right? They are competing with the fact that when they want to show, let's say, a peanut butter, they can't show the width as same way as most of, let's say, what an Amazon will have or some of the other platforms will have. So I think so what you really have to look at it is you have to also invest on that platform. So you have to also look at कि मैं क्या ऐसा दूंगा मेरे peanut butter में या तो कुछ obviously the components or what whether it is for a specific audience. One, it covers those aspects. The other is price plays a big role on q-commerce also, right? So if you are far competing and better than some of the competing old age brands or something relevant, I think so those play a big role in terms of starting off in a q-commerce platform. Today, by the way, the biggest bottleneck for q-commerce platform is just listing. I think so both Blinkit, Instamart, Zepto, everyone is loaded. I think so they have more inbounds than what they are really listing.
Right.
To be honest, they are not. At some point I have heard, and things come to me also that they are just not responding. But the truth is, I think so there is more option there, and they are trying to solve for discovery. uh, the here the thing is, q-commerce, the most interesting piece to try is sampling and giveaways, right? q-commerce continuously want to do something or the other to wow. You'll see they'll come in Ugadi, they'll come in Diwali, they'll give you a special packet, उसमें cookie होगा, कुछ होगा, ये होगा, वो होगा. So if you start participating in those, that also helps you list early. You can say मैं आपके सारे events में ये कुछ दूंगा, because that gives an experiential. अगर आपका product है, अगर आप उसका एक sachet version बनाते हो, which you want to send it out. So one, it will help you list. It will get awareness of your brand at almost zero distribution cost. So I think so that becomes very interesting, and
That's a wonderful hack. Really great hack. Yeah.
it becomes a way of actually listing, getting in top of their visibility sets uh, a lot more. The other thing is on q-commerce, the ads inventory are not that well thought of as Amazon and Flipkart's yet. They're decent, but they are not as great. They're not like as well automated like the systems you have on Amazon and FK. It's still more, uh, you can say, manual at some level, or you'll say मैं ये ad unit खरीदूंगा and तब तुम्हें वो मिलेगा, search impressions वगैरह वगैरह. So I think so that's where I think so it also is important that you sit with the brand, the account manager there, and figure out what all more you can do, because when things are manual, I think so there is more opportunity. uh, q-commerce, my view is, this is the category you are present, right? They each area has a spike day, right? So try and see how, for example, it depends on the category you are, but if for your category, if there is a certain time and day you are really going to win the battle, I think so try and figure that out. For example, I'll give you an example of let's take about peanut butter, for example, let's say, right? I know a certain set of brands who only invest on peanut butter early in the morning and late in the night in terms of ad spends. They just don't do anything during the day because they know it's a craving product. या तो fitness led है, तो सुबह आएगा. See, it's very different from the product की where you think कि consumer की need आएगी. इधर consumer की need आती है तभी खरीदता है. So peanut butter consumption times क्या है? Try and match those, and your ad times also needs to match accordingly. So you can really play that spend game, right? When does your product get consumed? Try and match those on quick commerce, because the consumer is only buying when the need arises. So अगर मैं एक पीनट बटर, लेट्स अज्यूम, मैं सुबह ब्रेकफास्ट में खाता हूँ या लेट नाइट क्रेविंग में खाता हूँ, and that's the, and you know, as a founder of a brand of peanut butter, you would know when people usually consume. You have to time your quick commerce investment also accordingly, because quick commerce means people are going to order 5 to 10 minutes before they need it. They're not going to order it because they need it tomorrow. So your ad spends can play very smartly there. I've seen brands do this very well. So for example, ice cream brands, they end up only spending after 8, 9 in the night. New age ice cream brands, they just go gung ho in the late night. So those are things you can think of. And consumption time, basically in quick commerce, to win the world is all about consumption time.
Got it. I know, Arjun, we're out of time. If I think a couple of founders have more questions. Can we take those?
Yeah, I have 15-20 minutes.
Adhir, I think you had a question, and Ravi.
Hi, Arjun. Good
Hi.
morning. Actually, now good afternoon. I just wanted to quickly understand. You had mentioned that during your Culfit days, you were selling treadmills and cycle on Amazon. So a little off topic, but wanted to understand: do bigger brands get a better commission on Amazon, or you also? I mean, is there negotiation on the table, or is it the same for everybody?
I'll actually talk about this. Culfit originally was not selling well. We actually acquired a company which was already selling on Amazon, right? So
Okay.
what it does is the commission structures actually work very differently. If you go into B2B deals, your commission structures are way better, right? Plus longevity and depth of your relationship with your category manager plays the biggest part on commission. Obviously, bigger brands where where a Flipkart, Amazon thinks having this brand will help their stature, there the commercial models are different. You're absolutely correct. But I think so. It's also a mixture of longevity, and it is also a mixture of how much you participate. So, for example, we used to create a separate line of cycles for BBD.
Okay.
Now that used to give us huge commission variables both during BBD as well as rest of the year. So to know where they want to create. The second thing is just a hack. But every year, Flipkart and Amazon pick about 7-8 categories as the four core focus categories, and that's where they invest a lot. A few years back, cycles and treadmills were one of those, and they were investing like 5% on discount or margins from their side. So I think so for us to know that becomes very critical. Whether
How
you're
to know that?
so again, this is usually you get this information through your camps and
Category man. Okay.
how well are your relationships with your category managers. By the way, you can also push for it. If each one of you, let's assume somebody is working on a new age concept which you think is picking up, you can push for its inclusion in their focus areas for them. And by the way, each category manager is like, so I'll give you a larger rocket science knowledge what I figured out working with these marketplaces. Each of these CAMs are looking for an opportunity to grow something for their own well-being.
Got it.
And
Maybe.
you have to figure that you are going to drive his growth. The moment you have that alignment. So I know a guy who did extremely well at Flipkart because one of the treadmill guys said, "Yaar, COVID aa raha hai, treadmill bikega," and they both aligned. And see, sometimes it's not only what the market wants, but also what these platforms can create. These platforms can create a new category growth much more. So it's about how involved you are, right? Uh, in the beginning days, your relationship with your category managers has to be very close. If you aren't meeting them at a weekly level, if you aren't really doing that, I think then you're really missing it.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Arjun. Thank you so much. This really helps.
I think I know somebody who used to just sit out of the Blinkit office and meet the category manager on a daily basis to understand kya chal raha hai, what's happening, what's new on the product, and that's how they started getting listed as well.
Most of these platforms, trust me, are loaded with too many stuff. It's all about what you see and what happens. So if you are seeing more, things happen for you. Obviously, good products win. There's no reason. अगर कोई अच्छा product Blinkit पे अच्छा कर रहा होगा, Instamart will go and list it immediately. Same thing, some product will do well on Zepto and Instamart, Blinkit will list it immediately. That's a different thing. That's obviously the platforms are competing. But for introduction or anything, I think so. That big, just your level of involvement and awareness of consumption times is, at least for quick commerce, I think so. Consumption time is something not what a lot of people think about. But I think so thinking more deeper about consumption time is actually the single biggest driver for growth on quick commerce.
Ravi, go ahead.
Arjun, how do you find Cred as a growth platform for a new D2C brand? Because for us, so we had a DOD back 2 months back on Cred, and we got almost 1,500 to 1,700 orders in a day. But after next month, they said कि okay, अब दोबारा DOD चाहिए. So we said कि ठीक है, अब इतना सारा inventory रखना भी, we don't keep such inventory in our warehouse because 1,500 2,000 का
Then my
inventory
overall understanding about cred is little less.
Okay.
I'm honest about it. What I've though seen about is cred has the right set of customers. That is what I know. So
Hmm.
whatever we have done with cred, I've realized it is there. But my problem with cred only has been nothing has been sustainable because
Hmm.
they keep on changing their own models. There is a new variability which keeps on coming. So I would kind of stay away from commenting because I know a little less about cred. But what I've realized is uh, they have a distribution mechanism. Agar wherever you can fit in and it makes logical sense for you. But I've always realized cred is not something which you can build for long term. You can use it as a short
Right.
term hack. Is really that because like when I talk about quick commerce platforms, I talk about Amazon, Flipkart. These are long-term bets. You have to
Mhm.
build. You have to build it with fundamentals. Cred and all, I will really look at as a hack. वो hack एक महीने का है या एक हफ्ते का है मैं बताऊं.
Okay, sorted. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Arjun. Like really, love the session. Arjun, if it's okay, I mean, I know that you do a little bit of angel investing as well. Can we have
Arjun's Arjun's really got not much of a choice with me around. You know what I mean?
can we like do like a pitch session for our startups to you, like maybe like 15 minutes each? 4 or 5 companies which might be very relevant.
Sure, more than happy to look at. Uh,
Also, Karan, let's add Arjun to our group here.
Done. We'll add you to a group, Arjun, and founders might just ping you, one to one. But like, really love your support, and like I think a lot of founders can really grow on marketplaces and just their D2C, with your support.
no, happy to help wherever I can. And yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Arjun. Really enjoyed.
Thanks for Karan. Thanks, Taran. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Arjun. Take care, buddy. Bye.
it. Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you for the session. Bye bye.